welcome everybody. I'm glad that you're here today. Dr. Williams and I are looking forward to talking with you about growing a coaching culture. And I'm a master coach with ICU and a professor for Thomas Edison State University. And Michael?
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Dr. Michael Williams. I am also an ICU master coach. In my day job, if you will, I'm the Dean of the School of Business of Management at Thomas Edison State University in Trenton, New Jersey, which is about an hour south of New York City, about an hour west of Philadelphia. Garry and I have worked together for 10,000 years. So it's wonderful to be here today with everybody. Garry, back to you.
And I'll also mention, for those of you who don't know, if you get ICU certification, that actually counts towards graduate credit for the degree program at Thomas Edison. Mm-hmm. So very cool. It's a great relationship we have with this university. And I want to welcome y'all here today. We're going to be talking about growing a coaching culture. And let me explain what we mean by that. Michael and I will be both talking about this presentation. So, and by the way, we will give you our email address if you ever have any questions and you want to follow up with us. We're happy to do that. But we're all used to sports teams being coached. And we live in a world that really is very volatile and uncertain. There's a lot of challenges, and organizations want to improve. And typically when we think of coaching, we think of it as a team, and there is a coach standing over on the side telling them what to do. And we've given that some thought, and we think that the time has come for us to move to a different way of thinking about coaching. And Michael, what do you think about this?
Well, to Garry's point, how we think about coaching or how we think about anything is really the orientation. We have a cognitive orientation to this work. And when I say cognitive, what is interesting about coaching is we look at it oftentimes as a unique experience that frankly is somehow contemporary, as somehow it's new. It is as old as time, and it is embedded in family systems models. This is a psychodynamic experience. If you're like me, which hopefully you're not, but I take this completely from a Freudian orientation, Hyman Spotnitz. In this context, coaching is a family systems model. So everyone on here who is a parent has been doing it for their entire parental life. In that, as you bring these skill sets forward, and if you frame them, as I do and Garry does, in a psychodynamic orientation, what you have is this linkage of leadership, culture, and change, which are inextricably linked. You cannot have one without the other. And if you look at parenting, as you lead your children, you're also coaching them, you're also in a cultural context. So if you look back to the coaching to a family systems model using a psychodynamic orientation, this slide talks about that the foundational platforms for contemporary organizational coaching are embedded in the work that people already know. It's a matter of articulating it through new models and tools. This inextricable linkage between all three, we all experience that. And when people come to us for coaching, it really reflects back on, one, what their parental relationship was, two, how they relate with others, and understanding that coaching and change are part of the nonstop life experience, which they need skills to be able to manage. The idea of establishing a coaching culture, this is one where this is really cultural change at its macro sense. It is significant. We all know that we try to change our families, which is sometimes completely impossible. That is translated right into the workplace. So the frustrations we have, people will not participate, people will not do things. The truth of the matter is you cannot make anyone do what they don't want. In the context of organizations, you can fire them, you can get rid of them, you can do a variety of things. But the idea is identifying and shaping a nucleus of participants like a high-performing family that frankly share the same orientations, goals, and ideas relative to how we move together. That's the family systems model at its best. What we also need to consider is the idea of the coaching context. Now, we all coach in maybe different ways. From a psychodynamic point of view, the cultural change context is really surrounded by change, its volume, its speed, and its complexity. We know as adults, as we move through life, changes that are immediate and fast are sometimes difficult to deal with. Psychologically, you are not prepared for it. When people come to you and say, I'd like you to coach me to communicate better. Well, without an understanding of what they're doing and how long it takes for them to do it and the complexity of their lives, coaching oftentimes begins to butt up against having almost a therapeutic orientation. If you are not qualified for a psychoanalytic or other kinds of therapeutic models, you need to be really careful of what you're doing. However, you cannot help but get very close to these intimate, personal, vulnerable issues, which will enable them to move forward in terms of speed and complexity. So the idea is oftentimes when Garry and I work together, because of our orientations to coaching, we bring together some very powerful models that we each have expertise in, and we can share them back and forth. That's the beauty. So coaching partnerships is one way to enable a coaching culture. And then I'll just mention, Garry is a proponent as well as I am, and Garry is expert in learning organizations. And this is the work you'll see from Peter Senge from really 3 decades ago. However, it is still alive and well. The learning organization model is a vibrant context in which to place the idea of developing a coaching culture. Garry, back to you.
Well, as Michael was just saying, Peter Senge wrote the book, The Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of a Learning Organization, over 30 years ago. And so this is not a new concept. And frankly, most organizations today think they are learning organizations when the actual research, and if you go in and investigate it, suggests that no, they're not. They're still operating the same old way they've always operated. And the statistics bear that out. Statistics show that 96% of an organization's capacity for growth and development is through learning, but only 20% are satisfied with their ability to learn. That's organizations and people. And so we think that that means the traditional way of people learning is not working like it used to. There's a word here, metanoia, which I want Michael to explain to you a little bit more.
And with that in mind, Garry, you bring up such a great point. It's interesting. We're speaking about coaching, but at the same time, we're speaking about organizational structure, organizational psychology, and frankly, influencing how people think and behave. Leadership is tantamount or in equal to influence. If you think about influencing, metanoia is, believe it or not, a Catholic term from the 15th century. And what it means is shift of mind. And literally at the time when it was articulated, it literally meant taking off one head and putting on another. This idea of metanoia is incredibly important, frankly, to enable people to think and behave in different ways. It begins to sound as I'm saying the same thing over and over again, because I am. The idea of organizational change, cultural coaching cannot occur unless there is an individual and organizational structural change relative to how people are influenced. Coaching is influence, and we can think about it, talk about it, argue about it. However, what people are doing is they are coming to you and to me and to Garry and to Diana to be in a position where they're looking for you to influence to do something. Now, you can say that's conscious or unconscious, but they want your help to change. That's the point. Organizations want, in toto, the same thing. So at the same time, we must orient ourselves to being change leaders and frankly, taking that seriously and not being afraid to influence people. Now, coaching, oftentimes people, if you're a Rogerian, if you will, Rogers' model talks about, allowing people to discover themselves, and they do. At the same time, our orientation is a much more dynamic and influential model, asserting certain principles in coaching. Garry, back to you.
As he said, this is not a new term. Metanoia has been around for a long, long time. And again, organizations like to think we're really changing. We're really great learners. But in fact, again, the research does not bear that out. Gallup organization conducts a survey every year worldwide, and these numbers are very consistent. Of course, they're worse in some countries than in others, but basically the overall results are pretty good. That really only about uh, 20% of employees come to work every day excited to be there. The rest of them are disengaged, meaning you come to work, you do your job, you go home, or actively disengaged, which is you're actually causing trouble. And you've all been to restaurants or movie theaters or somewhere where you thought, how can they be paying this person to help? Because they're awful at it. What employees and stakeholders, the people who work in a company want is they certainly want their basic needs met, salary, health, safety, information. But they also, today's workforce wants more. They want to be involved. They want vision, mission, meaning. They want to be recognized for the work that they do. And again, you only have to walk around and see people connected to each other by their phones. They want connection. They want trust and respect and engagement in their organizations, but they also really want professional development and growth opportunities. Would you add anything to that, Michael?
Well, it's so interesting as I'm listening to this presentation myself, is if we step away for a moment and you look at the slide, this sounds like a parent. And all of us know by being in organizations how horrible organizations can be or how wonderful. But we replicate those organizations by the family units that we have. This is no mystery. So people wonder where organizational culture comes from. You're living it every day. And with that in mind, those of us who are involved in organizational psychology, organizational behavior, sometimes you want to sit there and scream because people think this is something new. It is not new. Yet they won't capture the foundational orientations, both I'll say social, personal, psychodynamic that we have, for example, in this slide, which is so critically important. The primary needs of health, safety, etc. Isn't that the base of Maslow's pyramid? So we look back to that work and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is psychology 101 again. We then look at the idea of vision, mission, and meaning. While it's easy off the lips to talk about, the truth of the matter, we are all here at ICU because we've made a leap of faith. We believe, and in that belief system, this is where the metanoia comes in. Why? I have a belief system in their ability to do this work, and I've seen it done that convinces me. So this is the idea again of influence. I'm being influenced. The way you are responsible, we are responsible to influence how people think and behave. That may seem too assertive for many people. I can assure you it is not. So the idea of vision, mission, meaning, I don't want to be too long-winded, but it's important we realize that when Garry and I talk about developing a coping culture, this is a term in sociology that's called social construction. We all socially construct our worlds. We construct through language, we construct through imagery, we construct through context of meaning. And the importance of this is people in coaching, people want you to help them socially construct their world. While it's philosophic in nature, coaching is a philosophic solution. It is telling people, showing people, giving them examples of how life could be, and you are the driver of that. So the idea of vision, mission, and meaning, we find meaning in certain things for a variety of reasons. People are coming to you and to me and to Garry to help them find meaning in what they're doing, when work may not be it. However, if work is it, there's a responsibility to frankly give them options to see things. And that's where the training is so critically important. ICU training, the Master Coach series is incredibly important to give you the pictures of frankly what you may not know. And that leads to other kinds of studying. Myself, as a psychoanalyst, as well as a business, an entrepreneur, I'm in a position where vision, mission, and meaning could not be more important, and it comes out of my mouth every single day. So this slide is so important. It's got depth that Garry has organized. Recognition, appreciation, to his point, is, we're all doing it. We're social animals. Trust, respect, engagement, that can be, that can be somehow difficult at times. However, you all know this work as we know this work. The coaching culture is one where it puts front and center what the mission is, meaning if in an organization, you will come to hear these things, you do not have to agree with them or want them, but you will get them. That's parental at its best. But at the same time, I am looking to influence how you think and behave, and I'm trying to do that through a social construction that makes sense for all of us to be productive. Garry, it's yours.
And one way we do that is you've all seen this, I think, at some point in time. We call it the POIME model. It's that effective leaders, and by the way, I certainly agree with Michael that starts with parents. Parenting, I think, is one of the hardest leadership jobs there is. You can't just quit and go away. It's there for life. So. Yeah, but it starts by helping people understand, again, growth and development starts with purpose, pursuing positive outcomes that are good for not just you, but for other people, creating an environment that's really inspirational and makes people, feel appreciated and recognized, being mindful of not just what's happened in the past or what's going on right now, but what's going to happen in the future. And then, of course, ethics and values is the centerpiece. And I would point out that this is covered in a lot more detail in our new book, the Leadership Transformation Workbook, which there is a link in the chat box that you can link to that book. This model is important, and it has some deeper connections. And Michael, can you talk about these?
I wanted to make a comment. I'm going to publicly give Garry the applause for the POVI model. The work that we've done in the book, Garry has a very unique perspective on the world that, frankly, I don't have in the same way he does. He created this model. This unit is we've taken this, and Garry has taken this and applied it in a variety of contexts. And if you can imagine, the POVI model is so critical, which reflects the slide previously. This is really a wonderful platform for this idea of social construction. If this were up on a board, or if this was done with employees, for example, at a lunch and learn kind of situation, and you began to take these pieces apart, these 5 units, and have 5 different units, you then begin to put this back together in the context of the mission of the organization, what your products you're doing, what kind of business you do. People look for artifacts that are meaningful. If you like sports teams, if you like a certain kind of car, a brand of clothing, whatever it might be, you're buying the brand. You're buying the artifact. You are infusing the artifact with meaning. That's social construction. This model that Garry has built is the model that, frankly, we find most powerful in being able to have people identify and use that as a platform for coaching. This is a simple slide that I use in various presentations. For these areas, these are the critical, at least in our opinion, the critical literatures surrounding these areas in a contemporary way that can influence how people think and behave. I just want to make a comment. These are uniquely different. They are, frankly, American by design, so that has a bias too, which may not always be accurate. However, the Edgar Schein work to the bottom right is international. Everyone knows Edgar's work. The top left, Howard Gardner is out of Harvard University, has influenced leadership for the past 40 years. And then the last is the psychodynamic aspect of Sigmund Freud, Hyman Spotnitz, Erik Erikson. I use these 4 areas where if you want further insight, please use these resources. Garry, go ahead.
So what this leads us to is, what is a coaching culture? And that's one where we say, we define that as a coaching culture in an organization. So think about businesses that you've worked in before. This is not theoretical, this is practical. A coaching culture actively encourages everybody at all levels of the organization to share knowledge and coach each other. And that can be me coaching someone subordinate to me, a peer. I could coach up to my manager or to somebody else. I mean, there's it's rare day, a rare week that I don't have to go to a younger person and say, now, how do I use this phone? There's some function I don't know. So we can all learn something from everybody. And that's what makes a coaching culture unique.
And
Right
Gary,
now, yeah.
Gary, I'm gonna butt in for just a second. If you could swing back,
Uh-huh.
this is probably the most exciting slide in this entire presentation. And the reason it is what Gary's articulating requires a degree of willingness and vulnerability that people just don't do. So the idea of having open to influence, again, open to vulnerability, having the intercourse that you have in many ways, this has to be almost a follow the leader experience, meaning you're in an organization and you are physically walking people around and showing them how to act and behave the same way you would do with a 3-year-old. Gary, go ahead.
And we're going to talk some more about why we don't have coaching cultures in most organizations in just a minute. But one thing you might think about is, most of the time when we think of coaching, it's in an organization, it's offered to one of two groups of people. Either on one end of the spectrum here, you're a problem, we call it problem child, you know, you're having troubles, and so you get coached to try to improve you, or coaching is provided to the people who are the top performers. Now, what that does, of course, is it leaves everybody else out. And you wouldn't do that as a parent. You wouldn't say, well, I'm going to coach some kids, some of my kids, but not the others because I like them better or whatever. No, we coach all our kids. And so so you have to ask the question, what keeps us from having a great coaching culture? And as Michael was just saying here, in many organizations, leaders really don't value or support a culture where coaching is the norm. There's very limited training and development in coaching in organizations, and I know that because I've been the director of coaching in several big organizations, billion-dollar organizations, and we talk about coaching. We say that coaching is a requirement for management, but very few managers ever get coaching. Nobody's accountable for coaching each other. And in fact, as you can see at the last one, people just don't share information. Again, performance development is focused on top talent or poor or problem employees. It's not focused on everybody. And if everybody's not learning and growing, well, then you're really not a learning organization. And as this next bullet shows, knowledge sharing and management is limited. And so people just really are not encouraged to learn from each other. And oftentimes an organization will have a culture of defensiveness, blame, and fear, or the fact that, frankly, why I'm not going to show you that what I know, because then you might be doing better, and I don't get all the credit. What would you add, Michael?
Gary, to your point, beautifully said. This is almost impossible to do, isn't it? We're in a position where we know these things, and you say, how many lives do I have to live to be able to do this? Truth of the matter is, there's only small bits you can do, because in your influence sphere, there is no connectivity. You may go 2 or 3 degrees from you, and that's it. However, this is a longer term mechanism, and Peter Senge in his work, the learning organization, was alive and well for about 25 years at Ford Motor Company, a variety of other companies in America, and it actually worked. But then, of course, it was abandoned, but it actually worked. So there are lessons to be taken from that.
So if you had a culture, an organization where people were trained basic coaching techniques and encouraged to coach each other, what would be the benefits that we think you'd see? And not what we think you'd see. There are organizations already doing this, and uh, these are the benefits that they're seeing. And one, of course, is employees have a greater alignment around goals and their actions because they know each other better. They have better lines of communication. There's increased engagement. Remember, people want development. They want connection. This is a way of encouraging people to make connections beyond just going to work and I see you and I waved at you in the hallway. No, we actually engage with each other because I can learn something from everybody on this call and would be happy to do it. And I can teach you something so we can all learn. It's a safe, fast, easy way to learn. If you've been to training, then you probably know. I've been to a lot of training programs where I enjoyed it. It was really good, and I left. And 2 weeks later, I couldn't remember much of anything I learned. And I'll bet you have been too. Uh, and so, but coaching is if you're learning what you need to learn on the job when you need to learn it, you remember it. And so it's a safe, fast, easy way to learn. Again, it allows a lot more connection and trust because if I go to Irina and I say, Irina, I have to do some work in Bulgaria. Could you help me understand the culture there? I'm going out there on a business trip next week. She is, if I'm sitting in her office or at her home, I'm going to be looking around the room and I'll say, "Hey, is that pictures of you and your family? Where did y'all go on a trip?" And she'll go, "Yeah, yeah, I did." And so we start talking about things that aren't just related to coaching, but so we start building a relationship. It's also a way of getting creativity and innovation uh, enhanced because in talking back and forth and coaching each other, we may come up with better ideas of how to get something done than there was before. And then finally, then you really do have continual improvement. I'm growing, you're growing, and we're all getting better. Michael, would you add anything?
One last point. Here is an applied recommendation if people have the courage to use it. When you're working with others in a one-on-one context or even a small group, instead of saying something like, "Can I show you something? Can I train you on something? Can I give you some feedback?" Ask somebody, "Can I coach you?" Just say that. Can we coach each other? Introduce that into the vocabulary and be quiet and see what happens. They're going to look at you like you have four heads. Good. That's a place to start. Disrupt the usual way of thinking. Garry, back to you.
So, how can you coach in an organization? Well, again, I'm going to show you a slide. The next slide is going to show you a lot of organizations that already have coaching cultures. And these are some of the ways in which people can coach each other. Uh, so, just to improve communication skills, be a better speaker. So I might, by the way, I'll give you a real example. Mike Williams here runs some of the best meetings I've ever been to. And I've been to some terrible meetings, right? You have too. So, oftentimes they are a stunning waste of time. Nothing gets done, nobody does anything, and you just wasted time. Michael's are focused, that everybody's involved, you know exactly what's going to happen, you know what happened at the end of the meeting. And if I'm not very good at it, I can go to Michael and say, I notice your meetings are great and mine stink. The feedback I get is these are awful. Could you coach me? And he'd say, yeah, sure. But maybe I'm better at something than he is. And he'd say, I'll coach you on this. Hey, could you coach me on something? Sure. So we just trade. Strategy, politics, technology. Oh my gosh, it's always changing. Many of you work on big projects or sales. In fact, Michael and I are writing a book right now on coaching culture, and there's an example we use in the book. This is a real life example of an individual who's with a huge major company that sells tractor equipment. And by huge, I mean several $billion with global operations. one of their senior salespeople said that they were going to be leaving the company just to retire, and the company acted like you're leaving us, you're traitor, and they actually said you can leave sooner. We'll let you leave sooner. We don't want you to stick around. And so then they hired this or they brought another person in from the same company to take the job, but no one ever taught him how to go out and meet with all these global customers. So they're estimating that they lost over $12 million the first year because there was no coaching, there was no transfer of learning. So that's sales and service. But it can also be personal, like I need to improve my leadership skills or team building. I got to get better life balance because my life's out of control. Or get information about what are my career opportunities within this company. And of course, emotional intelligence is also very, very important. Okay, so you might be wondering, is this for real? Can you really do this? The answer is yes. These are just some of the companies that are actively employing coaching cultures. Patagonia, you may know because they make sports equipment, mountain climbing equipment. Everybody knows Google. Sounds True is a small organization, but has a huge production of videos and audios and books to help people improve. If you've ever been to the Disney operation, if you've been to Disneyland anywhere, I know Michael Dernikowski just took his family there. It's an amazing experience because they really coach each other. Here in Europe, there's an enormous company, Kauflands, which has over 1,300 stores throughout Central Europe. They do their own coaching, coaching for new people and for people as they start to promote through the organization. Zappos, Morningstar, Apple, Whole Foods. There's, again, lots of organizations that are very, very involved in this coaching culture, and they report much better results both in terms of profitability, in terms of service, and employee retention and morale. So you might think, by the way, we're going to be offering training in this later on. How can you start? Well, if you were working with a company, or you're in a company, or maybe you want to do this only in your area of control, your department, is you can start by saying, well, where could we coach each other? So if you think of that model I showed you earlier, where you can do it in personal, professional, or career ways, where could you coach each other? What is it people need to learn, and where could you coach each other? Once you've identified that, then get people trained. We provide basic training and coaching. Then experiment, try it out. Not everything works out perfectly the first time. As Michael said, we're all parents. It's not always perfect, but through trial and error, we get better and better. And then finally, you can improve and expand. So as you try it, say, okay, this worked good. Let's make some improvements. Let's drop what didn't work. And let's keep going through this cycle over and over again and get better and better at it, just like you would with any improvement opportunity.
I'm going to bring us back to a fundamental activity. Gary's talking about the hows. Let me speak a little bit about the what and the why. Why to coach? If we take a posture, a stance that we are coaching all the time, not in a certain context or time frame, it changes your orientation. It's a metanoia, again, a shift of mind. In our work, we are always coaching, so the vocabulary changes. So with this idea of why we coach, because we are coaches that have a mission of social construction. If you will, we wish to change how people think and behave for the better. If that mantra is really true, then frankly, we need to using the why with the what. The what is the vocabulary that you use. Can I coach you? Let us coach each other. Coaching is critical. Coach, 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 coach until you can't say it anymore. So the idea of how do you start? We've already started. The next question is, how can you continue? And you continue by operationalizing it on the ground through what you say and what you do, influence how people think and behave. That's the point.
I think some of you have seen this slide before, but this is a picture of Death Valley in the United States. And it's called Death Valley for a reason, because people really died trying to cross this desert back in the 1800s when they were going from the East Coast of the United States to California, and they crossed through Death Valley. And the reason it's so barren is because it only gets about 10 centimeters of rain per year, or 2 or 3 inches per year, not all at once, per year. But then back in 2004, there was a unique storm that dumped a lot more, brought a lot more rain than is normal. So instead of 7 or 8 centimeters per year, they received 14 centimeters, or about 5 or 6 inches in a day. The next week, this is what Death Valley looked like. You can see it's quite a big difference, isn't there? Before, after. And so I've shown this to people in the city. They say, well, where did all those flowers come from? Well, the flowers were always there. The seeds were in the ground. They just needed the right conditions to really grow. And so given the right conditions, or in what we're talking about, with the right culture, with the right training, with the right support, with the right encouragement, organizations and the right mindset, as Michael was just saying, you can make amazing changes in organizations, because I think metaphorically, the seeds of growth and opportunity and success are already in every organization. That we know they're already in every person. And with a coaching culture, you can really bring that forth and see this kind of amazing growth. With that in mind, I'd like to thank you for your listening here. And Michael, would you add anything else?
I would add to your beautifully articulated metaphor is that to achieve that kind of transformation, which again is metanoia, it's ICU. ICU provides the knowledge, competencies, and skills to be able to frankly approach this kind of dramatic transformation. It's a humanistic orientation. So with this in mind, in the context of this work, continue to read and expand your literature understanding from a psychodynamic point of how people engage, how they learn, and how they can change.
I would like to ask, do any of you have any reactions or insights or thoughts or questions?
Yes, please. I would like also to comment. Thank you so much for this great presentation and speech and understanding of coaching culture, because I think lots of people really have no idea what is coaching culture and how to integrate it. And I had some questions written in the comment in chat that you can read it a bit later, because some people were asking already about this workshop, and because they cannot participate live, they will watch online. And for me personally, so like to conclude, what takeaway I took based on your speech plus my experience, that first of all, for organization or for development coaching culture, we have to define and communicate the vision. You can after maybe modify my takeaways. So clearly communicate what is a coaching culture, how does it look like, and how it aligns with the organizational values, mission, and goals. And then ensure that everyone understands the benefits of coaching culture for individual and organizational growth. Second, then leadership. Yes, we have to secure commitment from top leadership to model and support coaching behavior, because leaders will start to integrate it in the culture in between employees. Leaders should actively participate in coaching trainings and practice to set and to be a sample of coaching leadership. And then training and development. I think it's very crucial to highlight that to develop coaching culture, we have to provide comprehensive training programs for employees at all levels to develop these coaching skills, and especially modules on active listening, powerful questioning, feedbacks, and goal setting. I think also because you already mentioned this, integrate coaching into everyday processes, like coaching conversations, to teach them how to do it into regular meetings, performance review, maybe development plans, daily plan-ups, weekly stand-ups, monthly plans, and to encourage managers to use these coaching techniques in their daily interactions with team members. And of course, to create a supportive environment, to foster an environment where coaching is seen as a valuable tool, for development. And my last note was also maybe to measure and adjust, to develop some kind of metrics to assess the impact of coaching culture on employees' engagement, performance, and their retention rate. Yeah, we call it in marketing. So regular review, get feedbacks and adjust coaching strategies based on feedbacks and outcomes. And of course, not to be afraid to invite external coaches sometimes to refresh, to show new perspective, a new new perspective on development. It's very valuable that you share it, and I think we can also share it with organizations, this video after. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with all of you. Thank you, Michael. And we hope to see, I hope you enjoy the book when it comes out in a few months.
It's been a pleasure. See everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.